Okay, we are going to jump into the enterprise apps as well as doing the admin consent workflow. Like I said, this is a relatively simple and straightforward process. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. So we're going to go over, guess what? We're going to go to the Azure Active Directory portal. So first and foremost, we're going to come over to Enterprise Applications, which is available here on the side, which are favorites. Go ahead and click on it. So right now, inside of our organization here, we have no enterprise applications. That should not really come as a surprise because we don't have anything added to it. But let's just say we wanted to add one. We have a gallery on here where we can play around with lots of different things. Maybe WebEx. Maybe we want to do, again, depending on Adobe Identity Management. Or, hey, here's something from Facebook. Workday, that's another one. SAP, Salesforce. You know, these are all ones that are just available. Slack, you know, that's one for us. Zoom's also one. These are really, straightforward. And these are actually super easy to set up. With a couple clicks of a button, you can have this set up super easy to be able to essentially to centralize that login process. Well, that's easy enough. These are all the ones that are available to us here. But really what we're looking at is we want to go to consent and permissions. Okay, so we have a couple different things here. By default, users are allowed to consent for all applications there. We can allow users from verified publishers, which is the recommended one, or do not allow users to consent at all. Remember, users can only consent on their behalf. They cannot consent upon anybody else. So the worst case scenario is that they have consented for theirs. Well, that's fine, because what we can do here is there are other things that we can do. If we want to do group owner for apps consenting or apps accessing data. So this is something we'll touch a little bit more about when we get to the collaboration side here. But hey, do we want group owner to consent for all group owners? Well, it depends. So again, a lot of these here, I like to generally go with at minimum this middle one here, but maybe do not allow the users to do it at all. So they're still able to connect to LinkedIn and everything, as you can see on here, but really, we don't really care. We'll also do the same thing here for groups. Permission classification here, this is really just around the idea of what do we consider high, medium, and low. In terms of permissions, the ones that have low permissions, maybe we'll let go through, but the ones that have medium and high, maybe we don't want them to go through. Well, we have a couple things that we can do there. Okay, now moving into applications here as we go to admin consent requests. When we click on that there, we see, well, we have none that are currently there. So by default, when we go under the manage section here, we have it set for a couple different things, and I essentially already showed you what we can do. So we have several different ways of being able to use the admin consent workflow here where users themselves, since they said they cannot do it here, what we can do then is we can have them essentially say, hey, admin, can you consent on my behalf? So that's pretty much the way that these really work out. Honestly, there's not a whole lot else that needs to go on with it here, but let's look a little bit further here in the admin consent request section. So by default, we have this turned off. We're going to flip the switch to turn on. We can also have reviewer types. So maybe we don't, IT doesn't maybe need to see this all the time. Maybe we have a specific group that's available for doing it, or maybe roles. So in this instance here, we'll just do a role of, I don't know, application administrator. That makes sense. They're doing applications. They're the administrators for it. So when somebody tries to add the admin consent on it here, that they'll receive an information or an email saying that, hey, you've been given it to it. And then we have expiration reminders, and I believe it is 30 days, and I believe 7 days beforehand it will say yes. So when they're about to expire 7 days, I think that's still the case now. Okay, and realistically, that's about it. We're going to go ahead and hit save. The admin consent request and the workflow are pretty much now set up. That's about it. Not a whole lot on that one there. It's important to understand these are really powerful, but it's one of those things I just don't have a lot of access to show you much further. But one last thing I guess we can probably talk about here is conditional access. So remember, we can set up conditional access around individual applications, remember? So if we come in here, we can come up under the cloud apps or actions. So maybe we want a specific cloud app under here, and we have one of those custom ones, like the Facebook one, or the workflow or workforce one. One of those. Well, we can look at that and pick that up under here too. So we can have a different app, a different conditional access policy around that specific app. So just to give you an idea, I had one customer who had a specific app that was a custom one for one vendor that they dealt with, and we locked it down to the point where it can only come in from a certain IP address, it can only access certain things, and we pretty much locked it down pretty hard with the conditional access. So I am not going to save this. We'll go ahead and hit the X, and yes, we will discard. So with that being said, that's pretty much it for the enterprise applications. There's not a whole lot else around it without going into deep dive on certain other things here. But for the very top level standpoint around security, I think we're good here. So we'll call this one as it is, and then we'll jump into the next one, which is going to be external identities. So thanks for your time on this one here, and we will talk on the next.